Welcome, everyone, to the County Service Station. My name is Bryan Layton. I'm the County Manager for Navajo County, and joining me today is Mike Montandon, the County Assessor.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here.
Well, thanks, Mike. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you hail from?
So Phoenix, actually, and I say Phoenix, Scottsdale. You know, we moved a couple of times when I was growing up, but I was very proud of my native Phoenician background, you know, living in that area. And I grew up there, spent most of my life, got married, started my family, and I was in real estate appraisal specifically, and got offered a 2-year job in Las Vegas. It was supposed to last 2 years, and they were going to send me back home working for a Bank of America, a bank there, and it lasted 29 years. So I took a little detour through Las Vegas, and it was wonderful, but I knew I was never going to die in Nevada. It was going to happen in Arizona, so I'm back.
Fantastic. And it was North Las Vegas, right?
Yes. I lived in North Las Vegas, Nevada.
And you didn't just do real estate there?
No, I did lots of things. So I went there. I took this job for Bank of America as a real estate appraiser, a commercial real estate appraiser. And I have to tell you, this job, we joked about it in the industry. I'd been an appraiser for a decade or so, that going to work for a bank was kind of moving to the dark side.
Okay.
So appraisal is my background there. Now I've discovered that going to work for the government as an assessor, that's the real dark side.
Oh, no.
No, it's wonderful, actually. But I spent a few years working for Bank of America and ran for office, and I became the mayor of North Las Vegas.
I was going to say, not just a office, the office.
And I have to tell you the story. It's kind of interesting in that I would tell this story as if it were unique to North Las Vegas, but it's not. It's everywhere. It's in Holbrook. It's in Navajo County. It's in everywhere I've ever been, in that a lot of people feel like being in elected office is some right of tenure, that if your grandparents lived here and your parents lived here, you ought to have the right to be in office. And it's just not the case, that you can move somewhere, get involved, run for office, make a change. And when I let people know that I was going to run for mayor of North Las Vegas, they just laughed. They said, it doesn't work that way. I'm going to tell you, the sitting mayor who was retiring said, Mike, you're such a nice guy, very, very pandering. And he said, but let me tell you how it works. You bubble up through the system. You join the Chamber of Commerce, you serve on some committees, you eventually get appointed to some boards and worked and things. And 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'll talk. And I said, yeah, that's great. I filed yesterday. I'm running. So, yeah, I was the mayor of North Las Vegas for 12 years. Wow. And that's term limits. So it was pretty exciting. You know, I worked really, really hard to get elected. But then I said very specifically, if I have to work this hard to get reelected, then I've clearly not done my job. And so getting reelected 2 more times was not all that difficult.
Well, fantastic. And during that time, North Las Vegas was exploding, right?
So, you know, it's good to be in the right place at the right time, but we had the designation of the fastest growing big city in America. And when I say big city, the U.S. government considers anything over 100,000 people a big city. And we grew, the whole time I was mayor, an average 1,200 people a month. So you just kind of have to put that in perspective. I now live in Heber. The whole Heber Overguard community is less than 3,000 people. We grew Heber every 2.5 months. That if it was like playing Sim City. You know, if we wanted to make a change in policy, anything from a funding policy to wastewater treatment to zoning, we could make a change and see the results, get feedback, and change it in 3 months.
Yeah,
it was like no other city anywhere. It was really remarkable.
What a unique experience.
It was. I was pretty blessed to, like I said, be in the right place at the right time. So for we held that designation of fastest growing big city for 11 out of the 12 years. 1 year, Port St. Lucia, Florida beat us. And I was like, where is that? I better go visit there. But it was really pretty remarkable.
So you go from North Las Vegas to Heber.
Yes.
So what was the transition there? What kind of brought you here? What inspired you to choose
backing up to your early question where I'm from, growing up, for those of you from Arizona, I lived the majority of my life at 62nd Street in Camelback. So I was right in kind of on the border of Phoenix, Scottsdale area.
I was Tempe, McClintock, and Guadalupe.
Yeah, so and I lived in an apartment at McClintock and Guadalupe when I went to ASU. And so I'm a Sun Devil. And that may have several people just shut the podcast off right there when I said that. But so that area. And my parents had a cabin in Pine Top Country Club. And so I made this run 1,000 times. And to me, I didn't even realize Heber existed. It was a sign that meant 1 hour to the cabin. As soon as I saw that, I knew I was an hour from the cabin. And so, we just blew through it. And you also knew when you saw that sign, slow down, because you were going to get a ticket patrol right there. Yeah, absolutely. So I came, to the White Mountains on a pretty regular basis on the way up to Pine Top Country Club.
Great.
Did a lot of skiing at sunrise and, just loved it up here. It was wonderful. And so we knew the area, and I'll shorten the story because it's pretty dramatic, but I've been in real estate in some form, either a broker or an appraiser, all my adult life. And I'm also kind of an auction geek. I tend not to admit it, but I spend I spend way too much time on auctions. And a tax lien auction popped up with a couple of lots in Overgard, and they appeared to be just ridiculously cheap. So my wife and I spent a weekend, jumped in the car and drove, said, we're not going to bid on something we haven't put our feet in the earth.
Right.
And we drove out here, looked at it, and it was terrible. Terrible lots. They were rocky, soil wouldn't perk, they were in an HOA, there were all kinds of issues there. And we ran into an old friend that lived in Overgard, and he said, I got some empty rooms, stay the weekend. And his wife was an old timer, just had been around a long time, and she drove us around, and she drove us to a piece of land, and we got out of our truck and said, this is where we were meant to be. And so we bought a vacant piece of land, and right after that, COVID hit, and we literally drove out to decide to camp on the land and said, we like it so much here. I started building a home, and we're here. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm living the dream. I really am.
Okay, so you spent a lot of time as mayor, big city. What on earth made you want to run for elected office here in Navajo County?
So, but if you think about it, it's obvious, right? I spent the majority of my professional career as a real estate appraiser. Another chunk of my professional career as an elected official. What else would I be but an elected appraiser, right? I mean,
the math works out.
It's just almost obvious when you look at it. But some other things happened up here. I have some experience getting elected, and I share this for anybody who's interested in getting involved. Do it. Absolutely. And just keep this in mind, whether you're running for student council or anything, an election's just a math problem. It's just a math problem, and it's less complicated than you might think. Just statistically, all other things being equal, 50% of the people will vote one way and 50% the other way. So you're not really trying to get half the people. You're just trying to get enough of a percentage to sway the 50%. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It's just a math problem. And here in Navajo County, there's a really fascinating political history. Since the since Arizona became a state, because of the native reservations that are on here, they vote historically very Democrat. And so there has never been a county-wide elected Republican in Navajo County since the statehood has been here. But just the demographics changed. The Show Low, Pine Top, Lakeside, Heber, Taylor, Snowflake have been growing, and the population that's been growing there has been more Republican. And so we went from a county that has been historically 30 to 40% Democrat advantage to one that's now 30% Republican advantage, and it's just a math problem. It's like obvious. I have the experience, I have the leadership experience and the appraisal experience, and the math is on my side. So Here I am.
So working in North Las Vegas, huge staff. You go from there to in the assessor's office. How many folks do you have?
19.
19 folks.
I do.
It's a little different. So, but managing people is people, right?
And
pretty much wherever you go.
There are some parts of it. Management is management, and it's the same. But the real difference for me was, as mayor, I was not only a policymaker, but I was kind of the chief policymaker. And there were a lot of leadership things that I had to learn by that. And I'll give you a quick example. The worst thing I could do as mayor was what we called embois, management by wandering around, was stroll around and check on things. Because if I walked up to an employee and asked a question, I disrupted his workflow. And his boss got mad because they could now blame everything on, well, the mayor asked for this, and I would ruin their workflow. And so I had to keep out of the nitty-gritty purposely and stick in the policy-making arena. Well, now as assessor, I'm exactly the opposite. I'm the data geek. I'm the numbers guy. And my policy is written in Arizona Revised Statutes, Chapter 42. I mean, taxation policy. Everything I do is a procedure. I rarely have to make many technical decisions in there. So I'm left as a manager. And so I have 19 people that work better when they see my face. So I spend more time amongst them than I ever did as mayor.
Tell us a little bit about the assessor's office. For those who don't know a lot about what the assessor does or what the county does even, what does the assessor do and why does that matter to people here?
Well, it does. And I'm going to get pretty deep here, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
On this. Because so the assessor's job is to keep track of and put a value on everything in the county that we're legally supposed to. And when I say that, it's changed. It's kind of fun to go back in the historical things, and I can pull up a 1915 document when the assessor tracked all your chickens, your goats, your cows. They tracked everything. Since that time, it's narrowed. We track, most of what we track is what we call real property. That is real estate, the land and everything physically attached to the land. We do track a little bit of personal property. So that being mobile homes that sit on the land that aren't affixed. Once they become affixed, we call them real estate.
Okay.
But we do track some that are still mobile. They could move them around. And we do track some business personal property. So that being, if you own a restaurant, the ovens and the heavy-duty equipment that's in there. If you're a school, we actually track copy machines and that kind of thing. So we do track some of that. Now, into the deep part. I will tell you, this is personally, now you're talking to Mike Montandon, not the assessor, but the
Go for it.
Person. I don't think we should track personal property. And every single year at the legislature, somebody agrees. Somebody puts forth a bill that says We're not going to track personal property anymore.
And again, that's all the stuff that's not affixed to land.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
business and residential.
And well, actually, usually the bill's always for business personal property. And so I will tell you that every year it threatens to go away. And so for years, our system for tracking business personal property is terrible, but there isn't any real incentive for me to fix that system, because by the time I got it fixed, it might go away. So this year, the legislature put forth the annual bill to say business personal property is going to go away. And it didn't have the votes. And at the last minute, they said, make it go away in 6 years. And they vote, and it passed. So it's going away in 6 years. So we're not going to put a whole lot of human resources into that area when it's disappearing.
It doesn't make any sense.
It just doesn't make any sense. The second one is, and this is kind of a tax theory issue, goes back to the beginning of time, that the wealthy can afford to lobby to fight their taxes, and individual homeowners can't. So I'll tell you, I face this as the assessor every day. A homeowner who's got a $200,000 house, the only thing they can say about their value is they can call me and say, hey, I don't think you're correct. But a major corporation that owns 15,000 convenience stores across the country can hire a big-time lawyer and pay him $1 million to fight the value of all their convenience stores.
And we've experienced that.
We experience it every year. The big guys can fight. And so for me, it's just become a real simple thing. I'm going to fight for the little guys and against the big guys. It's just, I think that's really what the assessor ought to do, because the big guys, they got plenty of lawyers fighting for them. For example, we have a couple of really big taxpayers in here. We got a marijuana grow house just outside of Snowflake, and they hire lobbyists and pay them 7 figures to go up to the legislature and fight them paying taxes. Your typical homeowner doesn't have those resources.
So what does that look like when you say you fight for the little guy? What does that look like day to day?
Day to day, it means, and I tell you, the Arizona Department of Revenue asks us very, very sternly and specifically to be at roughly 80% of market value. So if your home's worth, $250,000, they want us to be assessing it at about $200,000. And so day to day, it means I'm trying to stay there. And we're always going to be a little bit below market value. Now, what's that mean for our county? What do you think our county's worth?
Oh, I have no idea.
$20 billion. Yes, $20 billion.
$20 billion.
Yes.
And that's residences, businesses.
That's everything.
Okay.
That's the assessed value of our county. 5 years ago, $17 billion. So it's growing. Our county is growing in value.
Some residents have probably seen that.
Oh, yeah. Some of it's due to inflation. Some of it's due to new construction. There's lots of reasons for that. But my job is to make sure that that is accurate and that the burden is not placed on the homeowners. That if the commercial development is here, make sure they're paying their share.
Gotcha. So talk to us a little bit about value. So when I go on to Zillow or realestate.com, it gives me an estimated value of my home. How does that compare to the assessed value that you assess to a home?
Well, let's just say in a perfect world, and I say in a perfect world, I'm looking at one home. In the world of an assessing, we do everything in what we call mass appraisal. We never really look at one thing. We look at
aggregating
at aggregate value.
Okay.
But in a perfect world, Zillow and Realtor.com are going to be a little bit high. So they have a vested interest in convincing you your house is worth more than you think.
Sure.
So if they come on and say your home's worth $520,000, it's probably worth 480. My goal is to be at 80% of that. So, those are a real good estimate that if I say it's worth 400, it's probably worth 480, and Zillow's going to tell you it's worth 5 or 520.
Gotcha.
So, and that's a pretty real relationship. If you pull those numbers and I'm way off, call me. We'll fix it. That's probably pretty accurate.
And you mean that?
Oh yeah,
that people can reach out to you.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you go to www.navajocountyaz.gov, they'll see a little at the header. There's a link for departments. You go down to assessor, and your contact information is there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure why I get this, but I get 3, 4, 5 phone calls a day that come to my direct number, and I say, "Assessor, this is Mike." And people are shocked to get me, to get the assessor. They're thinking they're going to get one of the 19 that works for me. And they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry to be bothering you and wasting your." What do you mean bothering me? This is what I do. If you're calling me to ask about value or to ask about an assessor or splitting a lot, what do you think I'm doing? This is what I do.
That's what you're here for.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Now, you've been in the role for how long now?
6, 7 months.
About 6, 7 months. Okay. Yeah. So there's a learning curve in there. But what are you driving towards? What are you striving towards that makes you happy, that makes you proud?
Thank you for asking. And I'm going to talk about leadership in general. There's been some observations that I've had here and that I didn't really plan for, that just kind of fell my direction. Okay. So in all of the elected, I'm talking the school superintendent, the treasurer, the recorder, the assessor, there has been something that's happened in the last 60 years where we haven't had elections. Those jobs have been passed along to next site.
So you're referring to if someone's in the position and maybe they retire or leave the position, there's a process by state statute where the board of supervisors
can appoint somebody and they
to fill that office.
And no one has run for those offices. So the jobs have had this feeling of just being, people just grow into them. And so when I came in, nobody knew me. Nobody knew what to expect at all. So they did a frantic job of delegating the work and saying, here's what the old assessor used to do, but let's have this person do this part and this part. So leaving me without a lot of day-to-day tasks. So it was wonderful. So it gave me this great freedom to look at the big picture, look at the systems and say, all right, how are we handling this and why are we doing it this way? And you know this, everybody knows this. Most of the why was because we've always done it this way. And
correct.
Couldn't even remember why we initially did it that way. It just was why. And I'm going to bore people real quickly for something. There is kind of a PhD level theory in the appraisal world called economic obsolescence. And you can...
That's a cool title.
It's a cool title, isn't it? And you can study it forever to try and figure out what creates economic obsolescence. Well, the software in the assessor's office has a little box where you can check economic obsolescence and put a number in. And they had a policy that if a building goes vacant, a commercial building, we give it 50% economic obsolescence.
So somebody back in time made that determination. It probably worked great for that particular situation, and then it just kind of
stuck. Went. And I can tell you that have been, over the past several decades, dozens and dozens of appraisers who've assigned 50% economic obsolescence to a vacant building who have no idea what economic obsolescence is. And so going into things like that and saying, all right, if we're going to assign a value, we're going to have data to back it up. And we're always assume that you're sitting in a witness seat, a judge next to you and a lawyer in front of you. What data do you have to back up your decision? because we've always done it that way, doesn't fly at all.
What a great way to empower staff too, to really think about what they're doing, why they're doing it that way. And then when they have those conversations with customers who may feel differently about how the assessment is done or a policy, they have that confidence because they've studied it, they understand it.
So for me, I got to tell you, they always have the option to say, go talk to Mike, to a customer. But I can't tell you how proud it makes me to sit, and my door is always open so I can see the front, to see them up at the front talking to a customer and dealing with it and knowing what they're talking about that's a thrill to me. Fantastic. Really is.
So can I make a personal observation? Like I see you around the office a lot. You're in the office the majority, at least 4, sometimes 5 days a week.
Yes.
You generally have a big smile on your face. What is it that keeps that smile on your face day to day? Because not all of it's fun, and we can hear the excitement and the genuine way that you appreciate the work, you appreciate the challenge of the work, but it's not always fun. What is it that keeps the smile on your face?
There are occasions when the smile gets wiped off my face, and it's usually by somebody, not something. And someone who gets under my skin somewhere. And I'm saying that's a big deal because I have a fair amount of experience dealing with jerks, and I can handle it, but it still happens once in a while. But so I'm in my space. I don't know how else to say that. So I have to share something real quick. You had asked me sometime ago, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I always wanted to be my dad. And I never really, and there was times when I was a teenager where I didn't realize that. But as I grew an adult, I realized 90% of what I want to do is be my dad or impress my dad, it's kind of
Absolutely.
Do this thing. And my dad was a commercial real estate appraiser. And so it was my space. It's when we get together, we drive around, look at real estate. It's just what we do. We talk about cap rates and vacancies and economic obsolescence. It's just what we did. And my dad passed away a couple of months ago, but I'm in my space. This is real estate assessing is really a good place for me to be.
That's fantastic. I commented to my wife the other day that you can try all you want, but every day I look at pictures and I resemble my father more. Yeah. And physically and everything, whether you want to or not. But what a great comment that you're at this point in your life, you still have an eye towards, I wish my dad could see me because I know he'd be proud of me.
All the time. I had an interesting experience. I was down 2 weeks ago helping my mother move out of her house. We're trying to put her in someplace else. And she lives in kind of a gated community kind of area. And I was out walking down the street, and another couple, a man and wife, were walking down the street. And I stopped and said hi to him. And all of a sudden, mid-sentence, the lady just stopped and walked up and gave me a hug and said, "You are Wendell. You are your dad." And I was like, I don't even know who you are. But
what a great compliment.
And apparently I look and talk, my mannerisms are somewhat his, much as I hated that when I was young.
Well, you're a tall guy. Was your dad a tall guy too?
6'1". I don't consider 6'1" tall, but he did. He thought that was tall. I'm sorry, Bryan, how tall are you?
6'4".
Okay.
See, my dad was 6'6", and I never quite beat him.
So I'm 6'5", and so Dad was tall, but not as tall.
So where did the height in your family come from then?
So it's funny. I did some genealogy work, and I was tracking one of my branches back to Switzerland. And a canton was kind of like a charter. A canton was written for the area, and it listed everybody who lived in the area. And my great-grandmother's line, it said, "And the Entrecan family is known throughout the provinces for their height." And this was in 1450.
So probably 5'10".
Yeah, exactly. But still, they were tall 500 years ago.
Amazing. Well, Mike, we're glad you're here. We'll take this as a kind of final question here. What excites you about the future of Navajo County? You've lived here as a resident. You've worked here as an elected official now. As you look forward through the end of your term and beyond, what excites you about the county?
So I'm going to get real specific because I am the assessor there. I tell you that our county is currently assessed at about $20 billion. We have $12 billion in renewable energy projects, solar projects, in the works right now. Do you realize what that means for this county? That's just huge. So, and I know there's opposition to everything in this, but
not everybody likes
this.
Agrees with that.
And I also know that of what's on the books, not all of it will come to fruition. But putting billions of dollars of solar panels out there makes a dramatic difference. It puts gas in school buses, and it pays for teachers and paves roads. It's a big deal.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So the property tax that's paid, every dollar that's paid in there, the majority of it goes to schools, fire districts, and NPC.
Yep.
Right. It's the county itself. When we talk about like the sheriff's office, the courts, probation, prosecution, all that is about 8 cents of that. But the vast majority is your local school.
Over 70 cents goes to schools and fire. And so I'm very aware of that. And when I say a dollar, I'm talking the whole dollar. Most of it's going to go to schools and fire. I don't worry about you and your budget, Bryan.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. But you've got to be aware that there's teachers in every classroom. From kindergarten through NPC. There's buses, driving out to the rural areas. That's how they get paid for.
So whether or not you agree with that specific industry, those are real dollars that's coming into your school district, your fire district, to your local NPC.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. So I'm saying if we continue growing at the rate we've been growing in this county, 5 years from now, we might be worth $23 billion. The solar could take us over $30 billion very quickly. That's a big, big difference. And, the sun is falling on the ground right now. It grows grass, it feeds cattle. And that's a great history of our county. But this is much more effective, just financial. And, what's interesting too is they're designing these solar panels so they sit high enough off the ground, and it's a win-win. The new technology of solar panels are bifacial. They collect energy from both sides. So if you put them a little higher, they get reflection off the ground and get more power. But they also sit high enough off the ground that animals can go under them. Yeah, and so there's a win-win there.
Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here and the hard work. And I'll just tell, I see you in the office all the time, and I see the hard work and dedication that you put in. You take your job extremely seriously. You obviously have a lot of fun doing it, and I can see that in your staff too. Your staff appreciate you. And your staff,
I've got some good staff.
Some great people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time on the County Service Station.
Thanks for having me.